Okay, so what we have been doing is we've been looking at some financial things, and the effective interest rate, this is gonna go alongside with our compound interest. So if you remember our compound interest formula, remember when we are finding that R value, remember it has rate, it's 1 plus that 1 plus that rate over PPY over 100. Okay, so the compounding period, the compound interest can be applied at different intervals, and that's what that PPY is. So you could do it monthly, yearly, fortnightly, and so on. So what we're going to see is that the more depending on how often you compound your interest, it can effectively change what the actual interest rate is. So first of all, we're going to talk about this nominal interest rate. So the nominal interest rate is when they quote that little r value. So it's when they say per annum. So that per annum up here, that little r formula, that's them giving you the nominal interest rate. Okay, and then we see we've got the compounding period. So then when we're looking at that, that's our PPY. Okay, so what we're going to see is, and this is only when we've got compound interest. Now, remember we have two scenarios of compound interest really. We could invest money into the bank and we want to get compound interest. That means we earn a bit more for our money. Or if we borrow money, like from the bank, they are going to charge us compound interest. So that means we don't just pay back the money we borrowed, we've got to pay back a bit more, don't we? Because that's how banks work, otherwise they won't make money. So it depends, and we're going to see things like that. All right, so first of all, let's have a look at when we do look at interest rates and whether we are compounding it monthly, fortnightly and quarterly. You would have seen that we end up, what we do when we have a monthly, if we're compounding monthly, what we do is we've taken the nominal rate and we divide it by 12 because it's monthly. So that means every month we're going to add 0.3% of interest onto whatever value it is. Okay, and then we would do that 12 times across the year. So what you're going to see, when you do that, you'll actually get a little bit more than if you only did it once, because you're constantly adding to the new total. And the new total is a little bit more than the first at the beginning of the year. So that's the same. So then if we had fortnightly, we'd do the per annum rate, and we'd divide by 26, and every fortnight we'd be adding, say, that percentage on. So what you're going to see is the more you compound it more frequently, the higher effectively the interest rate is. So let's have a look at that. Anyway, it'll go on. So effective interest rate, so the more frequent you interest is calculated into your investment or loan, the higher the effective interest rate is. So you might just want to make sure, you might want to put a little note here. When you have a loan or when you borrow, I'm just going to say borrow, you want the lowest rate, don't you? Because you don't want to be charged you want to be charged the least amount. Is that right? You want the lower rate. That's what you would be hoping for. If you're investing, you would want a higher rate, wouldn't you? Because you want to make as much money as you can. Okay? So that's what you just got to be careful with. We're effectively going to find out what the effective interest rate is, but in the different scenarios, you want a different thing. If you're borrowing, you want a low rate. If you're investing, you want a high rate. Okay, so here in this little example, this can help you understand effective interest. So we had this scenario that this person invested 5,000. So we're going to do 5,000 into a bank and they're going to get compound interest. So here They said yearly. So this would be PPY was 1. Okay, so yearly, if you were going yearly at 4.8%, that's just like saying, well, once a year. So that's pretty much the nominal rate. We would see at the end of the year, when we do charge the interest, we end up with 240 extra. And so the way interest is calculated, see how you say the amount earned, yeah, over the original amount, okay, and then they times it by 100. So if it's yearly, you see the effective interest rate is actually 4.8, and that makes sense, like, because nominal is per annum, and so if you're doing yearly, that's once a year. Okay, when you do quarterly, if you look at it quarterly, so that would be people, it's going to be 4 times a year. So you'd get to the end of the first quarter and we would pay 1.2% compound interest. Then you get to the end of the second quarter, on our new total, we get 1.4. So at the end of a whole year, can you see you actually earned, so you actually earned this much, 244. So if I was going to calculate the interest, I would do the amount earned over the original. And you can see what the actual interest rate, which is what we say is effectively. Effectively, you are getting 4.89, which is higher, isn't it, than the 4.8%. So you can see that's what effective interest rate is. Now, if we did it monthly, so that's more times a year again, we divided by 12, so every month, you ended up with even more, didn't you? 245. So if we worked out, its effective interest rate is 4.91. So if this person was investing, they're going to they want the banks to compound it monthly, yeah? You want the banks to compound it as much as you can when you're investing, and what do you want when you're borrowing? Least amount. So you'll say, sometimes you might see, if you watch ads on TV, you might see them say, we're going to calculate your interest daily. And that's why, because that's the best way to get the best amount if you've got an investment. All right, so effective interest rate. Now, this is the formula for effective interest rate, but you never need to use it. Never use. Okay? You never use it. It's there in case they refer to the actual formula. Sometimes they might have that formula all written out except for one bit missing, and you might just need to plug in. So what I would say is you need to understand what nominal rate is. That's the per annum. And you need to know the number of times interest. So you might want us to write there that actually means PPY for us. Okay? So you don't have to do it. The calculator works out effective interest for us. So here I've got the notes on how to do it. So on a normal calc page, if you press menu, number 8 is finance, and then you go to interest conversion, which is number 5. If it's not, it's go to interest conversion. It'll be one of them. And then what you want, you see, you'll get 2 options, and we want to get the effective interest rate because we're nearly always given the per annum or the nominal. We're given that nominal rate. And so then they might say, what effectively is it? So in the calculator, if you press that, you'll end up, it automatically puts the EFF and a bracket. You can actually just type EFF and a bracket and it'll still do it. So it's up to you. So what you put first is the nominal rate. So say before you had, say, you had 4.8% per annum, so this is the nominal, and then you put comma, then you do the PPY. So if it was monthly, it's 12. If it's weekly, it's 52. So maybe just under there in the green, just write that means PPY, comma PPY. Okay, so that's all you have to do, and then it will effectively tell you what the effective interest rate is. So if you were doing, obviously if we were writing up recurrence relations for compound interest, we know that if it was monthly, we know this is our formula. It tells us to change that. And so here we're just showing you how it would be set up. But we've already gone through that. And daily, we'll just always say 365 unless they indicate to us it's a leap year. Okay, so sometimes they just ask you to convert a rate to, say, the monthly rate. So see in this example, it said it was 3.6 per annum. So just write, because that's the nominal, okay? That's what I mean when I said they always give you the nominal rate. So when they ask for the monthly rate, you just do the nominal rate divided by the PPY. So because they wanted monthly, we divided it by 12 and we got 0.3. If they ask me what's the fortnightly rate, divided by 26 and so on. Quarterly, there you go. So that's just doing that. Okay, so let's have a look at this example. And it says, Brooke would like to borrow 20,000. So when she borrows 20,000, that means she wants, just put a little note to yourself, you want the lowest rate, yeah? So when we're borrowing, we want the lowest rate. And she will repay she'll repay it entirely after 1 year. So she's only going to borrow for 1 year. And she's deciding between two options, because this is what happens. You've got, in option A, she's got the 5.95% per annum. So that bit there is your nominal, okay? So that's nominal. And she's compounding weekly. So that's PPY equals 12. So we know the more you compound it, the higher the rate. But the thing is, option B is it
52? Yeah.
Oh, sorry, I do that all the time. Sorry, 52. But option B is it's a higher interest rate, but it's a lower compounding period. It's only 4 times a year, quarterly. So sometimes it's really hard to just one-off see which one would be better. If you find the effective interest rate for this, you will know. You can compare the effective interest rate, and whichever one is lower is the one she should go for. So let's have a look. So if we were looking at, I'm doing part A, it said to find the effective interest rate for these two options. So for option A, so into my calculator, I would type EFF bracket. You can either go to the menu or you can just type it. Now I put the nominal rate, which is 5.95, then I put the PPY, which is 52, and I end up with 6.127. I just like to grab 3 decimal places because sometimes they can get very close when you're comparing, so you might need the 3rd decimal place. And then if we go to option B, effectively it had 6% was the nominal, and it said quarterly, so that would be 4. And if you look, you get 6.136. So we've found the effective interest rate for each. And now in B, it's asking which one would she take. Because she's borrowing, she wants the lower one. So which option should she take? Option A. Good. So when they say, which investment and why, so you can say option A because it has the lower effective interest rate, yeah? It has the lowest effective interest rate of, you can write it if you like, 6.127%, which means she'll pay less money, yeah? Which means she'll pay back less money. Sorry. So less money. And that's what she wants to do. No one wants. An investment account will pay interest rate of 4.68% per annum, and it says just convert these rates to each of the following. So if you want monthly, it's really easy. All they're asking you to do is just divide that rate and find the monthly rate. So if it's monthly, you've got to divide by 12. If it's fortnightly, you've got to divide by 26. And you just give the percentage, and if it's quarterly, you're just going to divide by 4. That's all you have to do, and you will get questions like that. That's simple. Yep, done. They might ask you, what's the monthly rate then? What's the fortnightly? So you just take the nominal per annum rate and divide it by whatever PPY they're talking about. Okay, this question 29, it says Brian borrows $5,000 from his bank. He will pay at an interest rate of 4.5 per annum and let VN be the value of the loan after N compounding periods. So even if you got to this question and you know, all right, I'd be looking in my cheat sheet, they're talking about compound interest, okay? And it says write a recurrence relation for this, and it says for yearly. So if we went to our formula sheet and got the formula, which I'll do, sorry, where's compound interest? Here. Okay. So I'm going to here and I'm looking, this is what I'm looking at on my sheet and when I go to answer it. Okay, so I can see when I do A, I would have to first find, here's the recurrence relation. So what's our VO in our example for every one of them? It's going to be 5,000. And you can see we've got to find the R in the different scenarios. So for the first one, R would be 1 plus the rate, which is 4.5. Now, if it's yearly, it'd be over 1 over 100. So we're going to see an R value of 1.045. So when I go to write out the recurrence formula, remember you have to write VO, and then you write how you get the next term, and then you put your R, which I've just calculated, times VN. So there's your recurrence formula for that first scenario of yearly. And then if I have to do it quarterly, so the R, when I work out the R, this time it's going to be 4.5 divided by, was this quarter? Yeah, quarterly divided by 4. So then we end up with a R value of 1.01125. Remember, don't round that common ratio, that big R value. Don't round it. You put every number in. So VO equals 5,000. Then this rule will just be that new R value times VN. Okay? So there's that one. And then our last one. So you can see sometimes they might give you a recurrence relation. Your recurrence relation you might not be able to see the nominal rate, the per annum rate. You will have to, say in that second one, you'd have to times that 0.1125 by 4 to see what the per annum rate is. Okay? So the last one, if it was monthly, it would be divided by 12 over 100. So we end up with 1.00375. So we'll end up with VO equals 5,000. VM plus 1 equals 1.00375 VN. So what sometimes they can do is they can give you this recurrence relation and ask you to state the nominal or what is the interest rate per annum. So you will have to, you can either use this R formula, the common ratio, the big R and comma Y, or you can simply get this little bit of the number, and if you times it by 12, that would take you back to the nominal rate, wouldn't it? Just that 0.00 bit, not the 1. Okay, so, but that's if they could ask that, and you might see that in the textbook. All right, let's do some exam questions. So Daniel borrows 5,000, which he intends to repay fully in a lump sum after 1 year. Okay, so he borrows. So what do we know when he borrows? We want a lowest rate. It's good to write it there because you might forget when you're in a rush. So the annual interest rate and compounding period for 5 different compound interest loans are given below. So if you look in loan 1, it's 12.6% per annum. That's the nominal, compounded weekly. So PPY equals 52 again. Okay, so if you look at loan 2, it's 12.8% compounding weekly. So you don't need to really work it out. Which one's a better option there if we want a lower one?
12.6.
The 12.6. So just get rid of that. At the moment, I'll take 12.6, my first option. Then if you look at the next one, it's 12.9 compounded weekly. Well, I'm still going to stick with 12.6, aren't I? I don't need to work that out. Yeah? I can see that 12.6 is still lower. Okay, now I get to the next one. It's 12.7, so it's a higher rate, but it's only compounded quarterly. So now, I don't know, because it may be lower than the first scenario. So what I'm going to have to do is work out the effective interest rate. So I'll do the effective interest rate of this one, which would be 12.6, 52, and I end up with 13.41. And then if I do the effective interest rate of this guy, 12.7, 4, I end up with 13.32. So already loan 4 is now better, isn't it? Even though it's a higher nominal rate, because it's not compounded that often, it ends up being lower. And then the last one is 13.2 compounded quarterly. Well, I'm going to eliminate that one. Why am I eliminating it? I don't even work it out. Because it's higher than the rate before it, yeah? And so I can clearly see, because they're compounding the same times quarterly, that I'll take the lower one. Okay, so then when fully repaid, which loan are we going to go for? We're going to go for loan 4 because it was the lower rate and they were borrowing money. Okay, the nominal interest rate for a loan is 8% per annum. When rounded to 2 decimal places, the effective interest rate for this loan is not. So you're pretty much trying to find what's not true or false, yeah? Just like you want the false thing. All right, so what you do is we go through and we went, okay, fair enough. Okay, we've got 8.33% per annum when charged daily. So they're saying this is the nominal. So if I was finding the effective, if it was going to be daily, it would be 8, what? What? Yeah, 365. And because that's the PPY, and you end up with 8.33. So that one's true, isn't it? That's correct. So that's not a false statement. What about, it says if it's charged weekly. So if I work out the effective interest rate for weekly, which would be 52, I get 8.32. That's what they said. I'm going to go with it. When I do effective interest rate for the fortnightly, which would be, 26? Yeah? I end up with, and you actually end up with 8.315. So when you round, that actually goes to 8.32. So that is not that's not true. Because it said up there when you round to 2 decimal places, it even told you. So I'm going to go with, this is my answer. I'm just helping you with some exams techniques here. Once you've got that answer, move on. And so you go on, don't hang around, you've found an answer, let's move on. You move on. You finish your exam and you've got time to check. What you want to do is you come back and you might have just put a little line there to say, I haven't really checked those. You know why? So then when I come back, what I'm going to do is check that those last 2 are true, or, and therefore my answer is correct. Because it's better for me to check something I didn't do. Does that make sense? I haven't done that. So if I do find out that these are one of the answers, it's going to trigger that I've done something wrong, okay? So we try to check it in a different way. So here I'm checking something that I haven't done, and that will help me. So if I do check them, you'll find out, so if it was monthly, just to help you, it would be, that's 8.30, which is what they told me. And if I do it quarterly, it would be 4, and I did get 8.24. So if I had time to check, and I'd be saying, yep, I'm happy with that answer. Okay, so this one, consider the following 4 statements regarding nominal and effective interest rate as they apply to compound interest investments and loans. Okay, let's have a look. So an effective interest rate is the same as a nominal rate if compounded annually. Was that true? If you compound annually, PPY was 1. Did we see the same rate? We did, didn't we? Because it's just once a year. So that is true. Now, it says effective interest rates increase as the number of compounding periods per year. Did we see that? Yes, we saw that, didn't we? We said that we want, if it was an investment, we want to compound it often. If it was a loan, we don't. So that is true. If you compound it more regularly, the effective interest rate goes up. The next one, a nominal rate of 12% is equivalent to a nominal rate of 1% per month. That's true, isn't it? Because remember, if you're getting the monthly rate, wouldn't you do the rate divided by PPY? So you do 12 divided by 1 would be 1%. 12 divided by 12, which would be 1%. So that's true. That's true too. And then the last one, an effective interest rate can be lower than nominal rate. That's not true. That's never going to happen. What's the smallest compounding period you can do? Yearly. And when we did it, it was the same, wasn't it? And then it only got bigger. So that one is not right. So that's false. So then it just asks how many of these 4 statements were true? How many are there?
3.
3. And that's the answer.